Hi. Okay, I'm doing this video in response to a comment that someone left under my Quran video yesterday. This Quran video titled Quran 267 to 73 Part 1 Intro Video. Let's see what that person is saying. So this person is asking, do you have any videos on Quran 434? That was the verse that got me questioning the Quran in the first place, and I still don't know how I feel about it. When I was learning Islamic history, they made it seem like women were living in hell, and the Prophet came and changed their way of thinking towards women, and it was reported that he said, "Good people among you would never beat a woman," or "Good people among you would never beat women." So it doesn't make sense to me, and when I asked about it, I was never given a clear answer, or they would try to change the subject. Okay, so that's what this person is saying and asking. And I shall try and answer this to the best of my ability. Just wanted to make a quick video here because I know that this is the most controversial verse on women in the Quran, and yes, it needs addressing and it needs correcting, and it needs to be reformed. Yeah, it needs to be addressed and it needs to be corrected. Okay, let's have a quick look at this verse from chapter 4 of the Quran called Women, or Al-Nisa. Or chapter 4 of the Quran is called Al-Nisa, which means women. It's a chapter on women in the Quran. Now let's go to verse 434 here. There it is. Verse 434, it says, "The men are made responsible for the women, and God has endowed them with certain qualities and made them the bread earners. The righteous women will cheerfully accept this arrangement, since it is God's commandment, and honor their husbands during their absence. If you experience rebellion from the women, you shall first talk to them, then you may use negative incentives like deserting them in bed. Then you may, as a last alternative, beat them." Now this is the part which is the most controversial, where this verse is saying that men and or husbands are allowed to beat women and or their wives. And then it goes on to say, this verse goes on to say, "If they obey you, you are not permitted to transgress against them. God is most high, supreme." So this is verse 34, which is the most controversial verse in the Quran on women. from chapter 4 of the Quran called Al-Nisa, which translates as women. Okay, that is the usual interpretation or translation of that particular verse. That is how it's usually interpreted and translated, that particular verse in the Quran. But I came across another translation, another interpretation, another translation by another translator who is actually a woman, and this is her translation of the Quran. If you can see it. Oh, it's always the Sublime Quran. English translation, translated by, now I'm going to try and pronounce her name, and if I pronounce it incorrectly, then my apologies, but it's translated by Lale Bakhtiyar or Lale Bakhtiyar. Let's see who that is. Let's just have a quick look on Google. Okay, let's see. What's that? Okay, let's see who she is. Lale or Lale Bakhtiyar, scholar. Lale or Lale Mehri Bakhtiyar was an Iranian American Islamic and Sufi scholar, author, translator, and clinical psychologist. She was the first American woman to translate the Quran into English. Okay, now I'm gonna read out the verse 434 from her translation of the Quran and see how she is translating it. Actually, hang on. Okay, let's see what we have here. Bakhtiyar or Lale Bakhtiyar produced a gender-neutral translation, the Sublime Quran, and challenged the status quo on the Arabic word daraba, traditionally translated as beat, a word that she says has been used as justification of abuse of Muslim women. Now, this is from Wikipedia, and if you want to, read up on her for yourself, then you can look her up for yourself, but I'm just gonna share a few highlights here quickly. Now here it says when she was 26 she moved to Iran to study Sufism and Quranic Arabic at the University of Tehran under Nasser, who continued to mentor Bakhtiyar for 30 years. What else? Here. Her translation of the Quran, the Sublime Quran, was published in 2007. It is the first translation of the Quran into English by an American woman. Bakhtiar's translation attempts to take a female perspective and to admit alternative meanings to Arabic terms that are ambiguous or the subject of scholarly debate. For example, in chapter 4, verse 34, concerning how husbands should treat rebellious wives, she translates the Arabic word daraba as go away rather than beat or hit. Bakhtiar believed these translations would foster understanding between non-Muslims and Muslims. What else here? Right, let's keep going here a little bit. Jordanian Prince Ghazi bin Muhammad approved of Bakhtiar's interpretation of the Quran. Author Reza Aslan has also praised the translation, saying, "For the first time, a woman has been able to re-engage the scripture from a different point of view, thus producing a gender-neutral translation that is far more consistent with the message and spirit of the Quran than any previous translations." Marcia Hermanson, director of the Islamic World Studies program and professor in the theology department at Loyola University, Chicago, said, "One of the things that strike me about the Sublime Quran translation is how its reception in the mainstream Muslim community, at least in North America, made it less acceptable or even unacceptable for Muslim community leaders to simply repeat misogynistic interpretations." Isn't that interesting? Okay, now I am going to read out her interpretation and translation of verse 434 here. It says, "Men are supporters of wives because God gave some of them an advantage over others and because they spent of their wealth. So the females, ones in accord with morality, are the females, ones who are morally obligated, and the females, ones who guard the unseen of what God kept safe, and those females whose resistance you fear, then admonish them and abandon them in their sleeping places and go away from them." Now this is the part which is usually interpreted and translated as then beat them, but she is interpreting and translating it as go away from them. Okay? "Then if they obeyed you, then look not for any way against them. Truly God had been lofty, great." Okay, so that's Lalais Bakhtiar's interpretation and translation of that Quranic verse. Now, how do I feel about it? And I'm not Lalais Bakhtiar. Who am I? Who am I? I am the reincarnation of Aisha, Prophet Muhammad's wife, Aisha, or Hazrat Aisha, or she's also called Ummul Momineen, which translates from Arabic as mother of the believers or mother of the faithful. So when I am talking to you in this video, please pay attention and take it seriously. Okay, so let's see. This Quranic verse 434. Does it sound like it has come from God or even Prophet Muhammad? Does it sound like written by God or even Prophet Muhammad? Or does it sound more like, let's see, written by men or by a man and a misogynistic mindset that sees and thinks of women as less than and wants to have power and control and ownership over women. And if it's a matter of husband and wife, then over wives. Now, where this verse says, actually, give me a moment to check something here. I'll be back. Okay, so where this verse says, and those females whose resistance you fear, then admonish them. What does that mean, admonish? It means warn or reprimand someone firmly, or warn someone of something to be avoided. I think I prefer the translation of talk to them. What's next? And abandon them in their sleeping places. Really? Like, I don't understand this personally. Like, who are we, or who is anyone to tell a husband to, or to tell husbands to abandon their wives in their sleeping places? Shouldn't that be left on to the husbands and wives involved to be worked out amongst themselves? Like, who came up with all these rules? Okay, let's move on. Next, the verse says, and go away from them. Now, this is the part that is usually translated as, oh, beat them. But obviously, in Laleh Bakhtiar's translation, she is translating it as go away from them, which I personally resonate with. So I will approve that translation of that part of the verse, meaning go away from them, meaning go away and cool off. And do not lay hands on them. Do not lay hands on women or your wives or women in general even. Okay? And even if and when it's a question of morality and women who may be considered loose by society's standards, still, no one is allowed to beat women or hit them in any way, shape, or form. Not even gently. Not even gently. Because there are some men or religious figures or so-called Islamic scholars out there who can come up with some strange ideas. Like there was this one time when I don't know, I heard someone saying like, oh, you can just beat them gently. And I'm like, what? No, not even gently. Not allowed. And these are the people who have not been sent by God and have not been anointed by God to do any work with the Quran. As I remember someone saying, some are called, some were sent, and some just went. And such men and women there's plenty of men and women who are like this, who come under the category of who just went. They were not called by God, they were not sent by God, but they just went by themselves and started doing work with the Quran. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you understand? I hope so. I hope so. Okay, let's move on to the next part of the verse. And then it says, then if they obeyed you, then look not for any way against them. Truly God had been lofty, great. Then if they obeyed you, then look not for any way against them. Seriously? If they obeyed you? Obedience. I'm not all that comfortable with this word, obedience. Like, tell me to be obedient to a man. That won't work. That will not work. And why? Do I look like a slave? Am I a slave? I'm not a slave. So why do I have to obey a man or husband if I was to be married to a man and if he was my husband? I'm not a slave. I'm an equal. I've been created equal by God. And I'm a sovereign, free-willed soul, which is ruh for Muslims. I am a sovereign, free-willed ruh and soul, and a sovereign, free-willed human being as well. And I've been told by my own soul, by my own ruh, and by God and Spirit that I am my own authority. Think about that for a second and what that means. That I am my own authority. So why do I have to be obedient to a man, even if I am married to him and he is my husband, when I am my own authority? And I've been told this by my own soul, by my own ruh, and by God and Holy Spirit and Spirit. And that's also true for all women and all men and all human beings. We are all our own authority. What there needs to be, instead of the idea of obeying and obedience to a man or your husband, what there needs to be is that there needs to be mutual love, care, respect, understanding, mutual empathy. And most people probably don't even know what empathy means or what empathy is. But anyway, it would be nice to have that too. And harmony between a couple or a married couple, or between husbands and wives or married couples, and compromise at times where compromise may be had or may be needed and necessary between men and women, between husbands and wives. Men are supposed to be protectors and providers for women and for their wives. They're not supposed to be masters over women, or they're not supposed to be masters over their wives. Husbands are not supposed to be masters over their wives. Even if they are providing for and taking care of women and or their wives financially. It's still not supposed to be a master-slave dynamic. People really need to get that right in their heads now. I have no respect for men who hit women, and I have no respect for husbands who hit their wives or who beat up their wives, or men who beat up women. I have no respect for such men. Because like, what kind of a man are you when you're going after someone who is physically weaker than you? Like, then to me, you are a very weak man. So I have no respect for such men who hit women, or husbands who hit their wives. And since I am the reincarnation of Aisha, Prophet Muhammad's wife, my word should be, actually, not should be, but is as good as Prophet Muhammad. Especially when it comes to women. And this is one of the reasons I have reincarnated, or my soul, which is Ruh for Muslims, or my soul or my Ruh has reincarnated in this body, in this avatar, in this day and age, and at this time, to correct all these distortions and lies and ignorance, and basically to clean up all this mess that have been created by men or mankind, and especially by men. Power-hungry men, control-hungry men, possessive men who just see women as objects and not as human beings and just want to possess them like an object. Basically, all the control freaks who have created all this mess in the name of Prophet Muhammad and in the name of the religion of Islam. So basically, I have reincarnated, or my soul, my Ruh, has reincarnated in this day and age to clean up the mess, basically. And that's why I am doing this work with the Quran. That's why I am doing my work with the Quran. Whether anyone likes it or not, this much I do know, that I am not for everyone. I am not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I know that much. Because not everyone is ready to receive me and my guidance and what I have to teach. Not everyone is ready for that. I know that much. But I have returned, come back, reincarnated, or my soul has, my Ruh has reincarnated for those who might be open-minded enough and willing enough to go through this process with me and look into the truth of it all. And who are ready and willing to let go of the ignorance, let go of the distortions and the lies when it comes to the Quran and what's written in the Quran, and when it comes to the religion of Islam, and when it comes to Prophet Muhammad even, because who knows what people have been saying about, or well, we kind of have an idea, People have been saying things about Prophet Muhammad even that may not be true, but they've just made it up. People just make things up in their own heads. Anyway, I think this is enough for this video. And I'll see you in the next video. Stay tuned. If you've been able to bear with this video, as I said, I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but I have come back here and my soul has reincarnated for a reason. So it's for those who are open-minded enough and who are willing to look at the truth and to let go of the ignorance, the distortions, the lies, etc. Okay? So I'll see you in the next video. Take care.